doing regional research. I think any research is better than no research. That's the first thing. The second is there's some journals that are high impact journals or well recognized or bigger journals. And if you're able to get a paper on those journals, sure, people are going to be like, oh yeah, great, you got one into a publication there. Some people don't look that deep. All they do is research, yes or no. How many publications? 6. Check that box, move on. And then when it's time for interviews, they'll just look at the title of your research, or they might not know the title. I'll be like, what research have you done? So it doesn't, my easy answer is it doesn't really matter. If you want to get one, and if you can get one in a big journal, great. I think they do not expect that you would have a publication in like a major journal like the Lancet or New England Journal of Medicine. They don't expect that, but if you have it, it helps. Like it's a plus. But if you don't have it, no one's going to be like, let's mark him down because his publication is in a Nigerian journal. No, absolutely not.
So my final question would be, with all you said today, I mean, we've gathered a lot, and you said you were going to send it. How are we going to get that? I wasn't in at the beginning of the lecture, but I would just like to know how we can get some of those materials, that you shared with us.
Okay. I believe in the last meeting we had, I'm going to share it again here. So I'm sharing two links here. The first one, I talked about people who have interest in research. Let me just leave all this well. I talked about people who are interested in research. That in the last meeting I said, if you're interested in research, I'm going to send out a survey, and then based on the responses from the survey, I would reach out to certain people and try and get them into research clusters or research groups. And then with those research groups, I can batch you with a few people so that you guys can work together on separate projects and your individual projects so that you multiply your impact and have more publications. So that's the link. I have a link for that, and I'm going to put it here. So
thank you so much. That'll be wonderful.
So this is the link. You can copy it and then fill out the form so I can get a sense of what everybody's interested in and how best to pair people. Also realize that I'm not getting paid for this, and I also have a life, and I also have fellowship as well. So I will do my best to help you guys out as much as possible, but I'm also constrained with only 24 hours in a day, of which 12 hours minimum are spoken for by my fellowship. So I will do my best to help you guys out. It may mean that I would put, if any of you decide that you want to do this research stuff, I'm probably going to put you under pressure to do this in a short amount of time, because I don't believe in wasting time. I want you guys to get this stuff done and move on with life. So let's not make this research a job in itself. It's just a task, as a goal, we help you get it. It's done. You move forward. So if I do contact you and you say you want to do this, be sure that you're really committed to this stuff. Let's not waste each other's time, and then let's just get it done for you so you can move forward. That's one.
Okay.
And then for the second link is the mailing list. So or a sign up list for people who are here. At least those who were here for the last session, they filled out this form. I'm sending out the same form. I can get access to your, you submit your email address. I sent people the summary of the last meeting we had last week in a PDF. If you were not here last week, you would not have gotten or received that that's meeting summary. I don't know if I can this is it here. This is the summary for the last meeting. The meetings, are about 1.5 to 2 hours long. I can't just put it on YouTube. It has to be edited, and I again, this is a passion project, so it's not like I have a PR team that's going to help me edit it and do all that stuff. So it's going to take a while before that's on YouTube, but I'm hoping to do that for you guys. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Israel's hand has been up for a while. Please go ahead.
Good morning, sir. My name is Israel Abraham, a 50th medical student from the University of Nigeria. And I just want to start by thanking you so much for organizing the boot camp out here last week. And I've been trying to plan this day's event because I have gained so much. However, there's an aspect I want to so because of my interest in wanting to come, I'm actually doing like 6 knowledge.
Hello, Israel?
Even like yes.
Israel?
Hello, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I'm having a
Yes, sir.
difficult time hearing you. Your voice is a little muffled. I'm not sure why.
Okay, it's probably my network. Just
Are you on speaker, or can you speak into your phone better?
No, I am not on speaker. I'm actually speaking directly into my phone. I don't know. Am I
It's better now.
more audible now?
It's better now.
Okay, so I don't know if you heard all I said.
It was
Okay,
almost. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll just go over it again. So I just started by saying thank you so much for organizing the boot camp. I was here last week, and I'm also really excited to be here today to learn from everything you have said. So there's actually an aspect that I want you to speak to, and that's the aspect of, so I've heard some folks talk about how like matching into certain competitive specialties is like a cult group, and that if no one knows you in the US, that is, if you don't have networks with people in that specialty in the US, it's going to be quite difficult to enter. And some of the things they suggested are getting sub internships in all those schools, and doing clinical electives there. That's for the particular programs you want to match into. So I just want to find out if you have if that played a role in you matching, and if you have any advice you might want to share in that area.
Okay. US clinical experience is important. It goes, so in my book, I talk about the fact that as a foreigner, taking you is a risk. There's no reason, there's no guarantee. Like, why should somebody give you a job when they don't know you? They don't know your school, they don't know your professors, they don't know your educational system. But here is some other person who is from the same country, they know the educational system, they may know their professors, or they can at least Google their professors, and they all speak the same language pretty much. So as a foreigner, the onus is on you to show that I am worth or worthy of this opportunity in a certain sense. US clinical experience is helpful, but it's a double-edged sword. As a medical student, if you come, there is a certain level of expectation they have, and a certain level of involvement and intimacy they have with respect to how residents and medical students interact. It's very different from my experience as a Nigerian medical student. Also, the interaction between the medical student and the attending is very different from ours. So there's also it's good if you have it. You may get some letters of recommendation from that, but it's not, I don't think the benefit is important enough that I would spend that much money, all that time, all the resources to make that happen. I would do it if I was interested in a specialty, like, maybe neurosurgery, and I've never seen anything, and I have some connections here and I'm trying to exploit it, and I also want to know the US system. It's hard for me to say, because I've seen people who did not have US clinical experience as a medical student. Now, it's easier for you to do a sub-internship when you're still a student, because that student thing still covers you, right? But as when you graduate, you're no longer in training per se. So you're not really coming in as a sub-intern. So it becomes challenging for you to get the spot. But when you graduate, you're probably in a position where you can relocate to the US or get a job in the US. Or you're living in the US and you're just going to do this part-time. So there's that benefit. So I'll say my answer is US clinical experience is important in surgery, or experience in a developed country is important in surgery. If you're from Canada, or you've lived in Canada, or you're working in Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, any of those countries, or European countries, US clinical experience in surgery is helpful. Sorry, experience in those countries in surgery is helpful because it means that you'd have seen laparoscopy, you're exposed to a developed country setting for work. And it's basically to check it that, okay, you can survive in that environment. There are people who will not interview you or offer an interview if you don't have US clinical experience. My hospital, at some point, my residency had that, put up that requirement, and I fought against it. I was like, this is just discrimination. Because it means that people like me will not be here. And if you're looking for a diverse group of applicants, you just lost it, right, with that one policy. What I did was, while I was doing research, or as a research fellow in the University of California, San Francisco, I asked my mentors who were surgeons. Again, I intentionally wanted to work with surgeons for this type of reason. I told them, can they allow me to rotate with them for 2 weeks, for a period of time? And there are two of them. One gave me 1 week with her, the other one gave me 1 week with her, and I rotated with them. Now, at the end of the day, they did not allow me to have direct contact with patients. So I couldn't go take a history with a patient. I couldn't go see a patient by myself. I couldn't go pull a chest tube, right? Even though these are things I could have done. But what it did for me was it checked that box. And I was asked in my interview, have you had a US clinical experience? Oh no, we saw it in your resume. Don't worry about that question. What have you done in the US? I'm like, I attended journal clubs. I rotated at UCSF. I mean, I didn't go as far as saying I only did it for 2 weeks, because then they'll be like, 2 weeks is not enough. But it's like, yeah, I've had US clinical experience. You're like, okay, you answered that question. So it can help, but it's an opportunity cost. You want to ask yourself, what would it take me to get this experience? And sometimes you're in the US and maybe you cannot get into like a big hospital. You could go to a smaller hospital down the street where there's a doctor. He might not even be a surgeon, but there's a family physician who gives you the opportunity to come shadow them. That's better than nothing. But I know people who, let me see. I have a friend who, his situation is different because I advocated for him, but did not have US clinical experience, but had experience in the UK, working in the UK for a little bit. But I think more of it may have been my advocacy for that person, and the person was still able to match. So it's tricky. If you can get it, but the question is at what cost? You have to decide if the cost is too much for you. That would be my answer. I hope that helps you.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate the perspective. Really helped a lot. It did. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Someone here, name is iPhone, says, this is extremely helpful. My question on J1 visa, I saw your tweet a while ago about not traveling restriction. What are the challenges faced and how do you prepare? So when I started residency, you couldn't really travel with the J1 visa without getting like an exit permit. It just felt like being in high school all over again. Like you had to have your liaison officer sign a form, and then your program director is going to sign a form. And then when you leave, you may have to go to your country's embassy to stamp your visa for you to come back in. Now they repealed, like they've modified that, so you can travel even if you have like an expired visa, but your, let me not say expired visa. You can travel when you're in a J1, even if you don't have a visa stamp on your passport. There's some talk about that, but I just feel it's a little too risky because a friend of mine, this is before they made this new law, got trapped in Nigeria because he left. He was in a J1, he left, went for a wedding or something, and he couldn't come back. And if you're trying to get an appointment at the embassy to stamp your passport, the wait time, last time I checked, which was a year ago, it was 365 days. If you've lost your residency position, it's not worth it. For me, it's just not worth it. So for that reason, especially because I was in an age of not doing that. But there is a way. There is a way. The J1 visa has the 2-year homestay rule, which compels you to go back to your country and stay there for 2 years after you finish training before you can come back to the US to work. Now you can come back and visit, but you can't come back and get a job or anything because of that 2-year homestay rule. So you need to know about that. There is a waiver that you can do to waive, like your country has to say, yeah, we know this guy, we know he was an H1B, but we don't need him to come back. He can stay with you guys. We don't care. And that's in a nutshell what the waiver is. In which case, if you apply for a waiver and get it, you transition from a J1 to an H1B, or you can go to an O visa. But you have to be on that H1B for maybe 3 years before you then get a green card. So it's a long road when you're on a J1. It's not an easy road, but it's doable. Mian Arsan, you have a question?
Hi, Dr. Obi. Thank you so much for doing this boot camp. I had a few questions that I listed in the chat, but I figured I just might ask them on audio. This was a question that was asked. This was similar. It's a similar to a question that was asked by Hamza. So when during my residency should I know which subspecialty I want to do my fellowship in if currently I'm undecided?
Great. This is a really important question. So it's hard, and I'm a prime example. I came in gung ho, like guns blazing, saying I was going to be a trauma surgeon. Thought I wanted to be a trauma surgeon. PGY3, I friend of mine matched into CT surgery. I heard about CT surgery. I was like, I don't know. Well, whatever, that's him. But COVID hit. And I was like, well, let me go I was going to do an away rotation in trauma at shock trauma at Hopkins. That's what I was thinking about, or maybe Boston, maybe Mass General or Beth Israel. But when COVID hit, we couldn't really go and do away rotation. So I was like, let me do something I'm not going to do again, or I won't get a chance to do. So I went to go do a rotation with cardiothoracic surgery. First case, aortic valve replacement. That's the first case I saw. I came out of that where I was like, to hell with trauma surgery. Because when I saw that surgery, everything else I had seen before just felt ridiculous. All the general surgeries I've seen, I started getting upset when I would see a gallbladder. Like, I was like, this is just a waste of my time. Like, you go from cholecystectomies being like, oh, this is a big operation, maybe not big, but this is like an important operation to it being an obstacle in your way. Like, it made me, like, when I started aspiring to like do the cardiac surgery, it made me so much better as a general surgeon. Like, I would fly through my cases. Like, it just, sometimes when you see, like, you don't know what you're missing until you get it. That's one way to know your specialty. Sometimes you know it from day one. You want to do this stuff. Many times because of your mentors. So you see somebody who's doing something and it does it so well that you aspire to be like them and you choose that specialty. Sometimes that's okay. Sometimes, you do that and then you start doing those cases and you feel miserable and you realize that what you were in love with was with a mentor and not a specialty. So word of caution there. But many times that's how people choose a specialty because of mentorship. So there's a saying that you can't be what you can't see or what you've never seen. And that's where that comes from. So when you see somebody do something and do it well, you aspire to that. And I became something I hadn't really seen. We didn't really have this rotation in cardiac surgery. You have to do it as an elective. So that's one way. So you can choose a specialty because of the patient population. You can choose a specialty because of your past history. So maybe, you're somebody who's dealt with weight problems and, you had bariatric surgery and it changed your life and you want to make that available to people like you in your community. Or maybe you have a relative who had brain injury from a car crash or had a trauma from a car crash and they died and they didn't have access to healthcare. So you want to become a trauma surgeon so you can provide people like that access with healthcare. Or maybe you want to do this specialty because there's a lot of money in it. You pay very well. And to be honest, that's a very good reason to do a specialty. I'm not going to, point fingers at somebody who does that. As long as you do it very well ethically and do a good job, that's perfectly fine. You could also want to do a specialty because of the work-life balance. So you want to be a breast surgeon because there are no emergencies and you're going to live, the elective life. That's okay too.
Right.
A word of caution to people who pick specialties because of money. You can make money in almost every specialty, just depends on how hard you want to work or what angle you're going to work.
Makes sense. Thank you, Dr. Obi. I just kind of forays into my next question. So my program doesn't offer any academic or research years. For individuals that want to, match into more competitive subspecialties like CT as yourself or like pediatric surgery, what are the chances of that happening without research years?
So my program does not have or did not have a formal research year. I personally am not a huge fan of programs that compel people to do research. Now you can go out in your program, you could probably leave many programs you can probably leave to go do an away like 1 year research rotation. If you're going to do that, you want to be sure that they guarantee in writing that your position will be kept for you. You don't want to leave and then they give it to somebody and there's no space for you to come back to.
Right.
Right. So you want to be sure that exists. My program was a hybrid program. It's not a pure academic program. The only reason why it's hybrid is because we accept medical students from Tufts University. That's why it's hybrid, but it's traditionally a community program. Before me, we had not matched somebody in cardiothoracic surgery in like 15 years.
I see.
Now, I'm going to be honest. Part of it is a reflection of who I am or the person that I am. But at the same time, if I can do it, you certainly can. So you can definitely get into CT, but you have to start now. My advice is you start now. You have to create your profile. I don't know if you saw the things I talked about when I was talking about competitive edge. Were you here at the time?
I was.
Okay. Those things still apply in fellowship. So you want to start now to do the research. So my background was I did my research fellowship before residency, but every year in residency, I presented at 2 conferences, published 2 papers, at least 2 papers per year. And I did all that research on my own time. I also had some personal stuff I was doing with nonprofits, with my nonprofits back in Nigeria. That's a reflection of who I am. So if you know you want to do a competitive specialty, or it's at least on your mind, this is my advice. Even if you're not going to do a competitive specialty, because I didn't know I was going to do CT, thought I was going to do trauma. There are certain things you do that keeps you within striking distance of success. Like you don't wait till, oh, I've decided to do CT, now it's competitive. I found out in my third year, which you're applying the following year. So that's considered late. Your chances of matching are going to be very slim. But the things I did were, I was active from a research standpoint, so I was always publishing in residency. I had some medical innovation things I was working on. So those things added to my profile.
Right, that's very impressive, Dr. Obi. So just to clarify, before you made the switch to CT surgery, the papers that you published in your first 2 years of residency, they were trauma oriented?
Yeah, everything was trauma. Global
I see.
health, global surgery trauma. Now,
Okay.
it had nothing to do with CT. But here's the twist. The very day I decided in my third year that I was going to do or going to consider CT, I switched over and did 3 case reports in cardiothoracic surgery.
Oh, okay.
I joined groups that put me in the direction that I wanted to go. So you have to have something. You can do it in CT. You can publish in CT or do research in CT now. And if you choose to switch to trauma, so it's easier to go from CT to trauma than to go from trauma to CT. It's easier to go from a more competitive specialty to a less competitive specialty, saying that I changed my mind, right? And you always find trauma spots. Almost always find trauma spots is what I would say. But CT was the year I applied was the most competitive specialty to apply to, and we had like a 55% match for fellowship. I think so that's a tight match, and it gets more competitive, I hear, or it's likely to get more competitive. Now you can definitely do it. You can definitely get in. My advice to you as a person will be start looking for publications in CT. Or research in CT. I mean, we can talk offline, and you can reach out to me. You can talk offline, and I can hook you up with stuff. But you want to start building your profile, building your persona, so that you might end up saying, "I don't want to do fellowship at all," and it's fine. No harm, no foul. You walk away, or you might end up saying, "Well, I'm going to do bariatric surgery," and it's okay to move from CT to bariatric. Like again, you can move from CT to any other specialty. I know someone who moved from CT to plastics, which is also competitive, but it's going to be hard to go from any other one to CT. Like you have to be strategic or do these things that I did or described. So try and work on getting research stuff, getting things pertaining to innovation, and you probably will be in good position. The other thing is you need mentorship.
Of course.
Find mentors to tell you the truth about the specialty. Someone said something about being, I forget the term he used, but being in a group, it's almost like a cartel or cabal. I don't know what term you use or something like that. But try and be in circles that would help you get in. So go to the AATS conference, go to the STS conference for CT, join TSRA and groups like that, where you meet people who are moving in the same direction as you. Find the CT surgeons in your program, and start, are you categorical or prelim?
Categorical.
Perfect. So look for the CT surgeons in your program and just get familiar with them. Because they will be the ones to have to write your letters, right? They might not get you a spot. They might not know somebody who's in an academic program that's going to give you a spot. Maybe they do. But when a CT surgeon writes this very strong letter that says, I wish I could give him a spot here, but we don't have a spot. This guy is the best thing ever. That's it. Like no one can argue with that letter. So that would be one part of your application, and then you do your job in your personal statement and the rest to make it all look good. Okay.
That makes sense, Dr. Obi. I just have 2 short questions following this, and this relates to both issues that you've talked about. So what's for someone, again, who doesn't have researchers during his program, have you come across any individuals who've done research or academic years after graduating and then before applying for a fellowship? And then the second question is that versus, graduating and then working as a hospitalist, a surgical hospitalist for a year or two, and then applying for fellowship. What's your take on both of these situations?
My advice usually is, for me, I like all my suffering upfront. The moment I finish residency, I go into fellowship, I'm done with all my training. That's me. I personally don't see the value in taking a break in between. I feel like if you take a break to go do research, you're going to lose surgical skills, and then you come in a little rusty. So that's part of the reason. Well, I had my research fellowship ahead of time, so I didn't need one afterwards. But if you do not match, you can definitely go do a research fellowship in CT, and then you can improve your chances of matching. I would much rather you went out for a research, if you really want to do a research fellowship to make yourself seem committed to CT, I would much rather you did it in your second to third year, and then you come back, it's the third year or fourth year, and then you apply. Because I don't think it's wise to have a gap between your training and I wouldn't say it's not wise. I don't like the idea of having a gap between your training in residency and fellowship. You want to show up fresh, hot with the skills that you have, and so that when you land, you just go. But if you leave for a year, you'll be surprised how quickly you lose your surgical skills. That's why people don't want people to be many years post-graduation, right? Because they believe you lose skills. It's reasonable it's okay to do a fellowship, a clinical fellowship. Like you don't match in CT, you go do trauma or critical care, or ECMO as the fellowship or whatever, and then you come apply to CT. It's okay, in my opinion, it's okay to go to like a surgical hospitalist job, as a bridge, and then you go into fellowship. Now, I've seen people who applied in my cohort. There was a lady who was working but she was military and was working for like three years, and then she was coming back to apply for fellowship. But she was in more like a general surgery position. In her situation, the military probably may have played a role, or maybe it didn't. But yeah, people are more likely to be understanding if you're in the military because they know you have like military commitments. So your life is not really your life. Okay, but clinical fellowship definitely better than research fellowship in between the two trainings. You can meet the publication requirements by doing research in between residency. I mean, I did it, but that's also because I had research skills myself. But I did it going through because I didn't want to waste any more time. I was already PGY 9 when I was starting. I didn't want to be PGY 40 when I finished training.
All right. Thank you so much for answering all my questions, Dr. Obi. They were very insightful and detailed.
No worries. Richmond, go ahead, please.
Hello. Thanks so much for organizing this. It's been really insightful and helpful. Yeah, please, I have interest in urology. I just want to know how easy it is to match into urology.
So urology is a little different. Like, I'm guessing you're Nigerian. Where are you from?
I'm from Ghana.
Ghana, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a different application from general surgery. So neurosurgery is different, orthopedics is different, general surgery is different, and urology is different. Urology can be competitive, but again, it's all the same principles. If you focus on your competitive edge, focus on the things that make you stand out as an individual, and you hit all those points, it will be hard for somebody to see you and refuse you, right? You also have to find the right program that's open to receiving somebody like you, right? because
Okay.
you could be a perfect candidate and you're applying to a job that I don't want to say promise somebody, but sometimes there is that situation where you're just struggling for a position where they already know who they want to take for that position. It happens. Like I've seen and heard
Okay.
of it, right? But there are positions that are also open. You know, I'll give you an example. If somebody has done research with the chief of surgery for 3 years, and now they're applying and they're in good standing with that person, but there's only one position, do you think you're going to get that position?
No, not a chance.
Yeah. So these things happen. I am a very practical and open person. I'll tell you, they happen. And, you know, there will be programs that are open, free, and fair, and everyone has an even playing field. And if you hit those points, you know, 9 points to a competitive edge, it will be extremely difficult for them to resist or refuse you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Right. Okikiola Saka. Thank you very much for your time. For someone who ultimately applied for CT surgery fellowship or general surgery residency, do you advise applying to 2-year cardiac surgery or general surgery research fellowship? So I think the answer is similar to the one I gave Assam. A lot depends on your situation and where you're going. My bias, and I say this is me, is I want to get done with everything sooner. I want to finish take all my suffering up front. I did a research fellowship. Matter. Me time to also prepare for my step 1 and step 2 exams as well, because I took it during that period. When it comes to applying to CT surgery, it's a competitive field. People like people who have research, a proven track record of research. You can apply to CT surgery in 3 ways. A direct application being integrated 6 years, called the I6. Extremely competitive. As an IMG, I can tell you your chances of getting in, I never say this, but your chances of getting in are close to zero. They're not zero, but they're close to zero. Because even for AMGs, it's tough. But sometimes there's a loophole somewhere. Sometimes there's an opportunity or something that happens, and then you can be that fortunate person. But the chances are a little better if you go through the traditional pathway, which is general surgery for 5 years, plus 2 or 3 years of cardiac. I don't know what the future holds for you at the time you'll be, if you did this, because that'll be 5 years from whenever you get into residency that you'll be applying. Integrated programs keep shrinking and expanding. People are trying to go to, integrated programs. Some people are trying to go from traditional, which is the general surgery first before cardiac. People are trying to go from traditional to integrated. Sometimes they bounce back. So I don't know what the landscape will be then, but either way, I did the general surgery route. I have no regrets about it. My skills are across both fields. If you absolutely hate general surgery and all you want to do is cardiothoracic surgery, you know, you can apply for the integrated, but it's extremely challenging to get in as an IMG. I can tell you that. Even as an AMG, it's hard. But nothing is impossible. So you're stuck with the traditional. There's a hybrid program, which is called the 4+3. Few programs offer it. UT Southwestern, which is where I'm at, offers it, but you'd have to get into UT Southwestern as a general surgery resident. And then every other year, they take one person through that 4+3 path. I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I know that I've asked about that program, and it's also hard to get into as well. But it's doable. I mean, nothing is impossible. So those are your options. Research, I feel, may help you, but you have to be strategic about when you do it. I think what's important is to have research publications, which you can find a way to get impactful research publications without spending a year of your life. If you don't like research, if it's not something you're passionate about, I don't know if I would spend a year of my life doing that. If you just need to tick that box in your application because you're trying to be strategic, we're being frank here, then I don't know if you need 1 year to do that. But sometimes you're in a position where you need a job or you need a year to study for your exam. Research fellowship is not a bad thing to do if you need to do that as an IMG trying to find your way through America. Let's see, any other questions? Following up on Hamza's question, when during my residency should I know for sure for specialty? Unfortunately, you know when you know. It's better to have. So my advice for people is to know what you never want to do, rather than know what you want to do. I knew for sure I was never going to do pediatric surgery because I just didn't. There are many things surrounding pediatric surgery that I knew I did not want to do. I didn't think I was going to do bariatric surgery. I never thought about CT surgery until third year. I always thought I was going to do trauma critical care. I didn't think I was just going to be a general surgeon without a subspecialty or fellowship, but I could easily do it. Sometimes knowing what you don't want to do narrows the options, so it's within these three, and then you can start planning your strategy around those three. If you're like, I want to do pediatric surgery, I'm considering cardiac surgery, and I'm considering trauma surgery, then maybe my research topic is to do the incidence of penetrating chest trauma among pediatric population. You've hit all three of them. So if I end up not doing cardiac, not doing trauma, and I'm in pediatrics, that study seems relevant. It's all about thinking ahead and being strategic. As someone whose program does not give research years, okay, I think I talked about that. I answered that question. Can a letter from an institution one did a residency outside US suffice against a letter from a medical school? Yeah. So on paper, you can actually get a letter of recommendation from residency from somebody you did research with, or even your high school teacher. You could get anybody who knows you well to write your letter. The thing is, as a foreigner, you want somebody who has been in a developed country setting, who has seen and worked with you, to talk about your technical skills, if they can, about them, your interpersonal skills, coping skills, whatever attributes, leadership, whatever aspects of competitive edge that they can talk about, have them do it. My letters for residency, I got a letter from an infectious disease doc who I did not work with clinically, but he was my mentor, and he was an IV doc, a lot of experience in public health and global health, and he was a reputable person, not just in the US but globally. But that person wrote, and I'd worked with them in a bit of a research like he was my boss in a research capacity. So that person wrote me a letter, solid letter. I have a letter from somebody who was a surgeon. Was a retired surgeon, but solid person, well known, well respected, was able to write me a letter. And then I got people who I rotated with, right? Those two surgeons I told you about. And I had somebody from anesthesia who I didn't work with, but knew about me from those other two mentors of mine, and knew about the work I'd been doing in global surgery. These are all the people who wrote letters for me, and I ended up cherry picking, picking which letter I was going to use eventually, right? You need 3 letters alone. You can only submit 4. I had 5. Again, be prepared. Do you think the fate of IMGs will change as H1B event of a Trump victory in this polls? I usually don't talk politics. I stay away from politics as far as possible. But remember that H1B visa is someone calls it a genius visa. And as long as America lives, America runs, and I make no apologies by saying this because it's true. America runs on the intellect of foreigners, immigrants. Einstein was an immigrant. Don't forget that. Many of the people who have achieved many accomplished things are immigrants. The surgeon who was able to extricate a baby from the uterus and do a surgery and replace the baby back in the uterus, foreign immigrants, Nigerian, went to university in the West. So lots of things, as long as America lives, and as long as America wants to be great, America will rely on and will need and will be interested in attracting immigrants. The moment they stop, it will hurt them. And that's why America is as great as it is right now. So there will still be the H-1B visa. The H-1B visa for IMGs is only available if you've taken your step 3, and ECFMG will sponsor that. I can't predict the future. I don't know who's going to win the election. I have no particular bias or interest in that for now. But I think we will be safe. Even if you get the J1 visa, it's not the end of the world. I've had the problem that the problem with the H1B is that limits fellowship opportunities, since not all fellowships. Yes and no. So here's the trick. If you have an H1B visa, you can apply by the time you're finishing residency for a green card. And if you're going for a green card at that point in time, or if you have a green card at that point in time, you don't have to worry about fellowship position. Not every fellowship offers an H1B. My fellowship does not offer an H1B now because of how the position is funded. Fellowship position is funded, so you get on J1. But they recently, like after my class, they switched it to a different funding institution, and with that institution, we can have an H1B. So that goes to show you the difference 1 year can make in your life, or a few months can make in your life, because it was like maybe 6 months after we started that they changed. Let's see. All right, perfect. So I think the rest of the questions I have here are personal, like direct messages that people have sent to me. I'm happy to talk offline with you guys. The easiest way to reach me, send me a DM on Twitter or Facebook. You can always reach me that way. You should also have my email by now because I sent you all a summary of the last meeting. I don't see any other hands up. I think this is all we have. So I want to thank you all for taking time out to come today to join this session. Based on the questions I received, I think I'm hoping, if I do have time, sometime in July, I might want to organize a session just to focus on your competitive edge ahead of your application in September for those who are applying. It probably will be to a broader audience, not just people in surgery. But let me know, anytime, just shoot me a message on Twitter, or if you want to send me an email, that's fine as well. If you think there's any way I can help you guys with anything. But I wish you all the best. It was nice meeting all of you, and I really enjoyed your questions. Okay. Any final comments or questions from anyone? All right. Well, that wraps up what I have for you. Thank you everyone for showing up.
Really want to let you. I feel like I want to sound my salt. I feel like I